another Chupacabra sighting.
What's happening, YouTube? Coming today from Southern California. Got up a little early, 2:45 to drive down to Southern California to pick up my latest RZR. So had a chassis built by Thad Mayhew at Fabworks, fab shop that's pretty well known in the side-by-side industry in Southern California. So it's always been my dream since I was a small kid out at the Mint 400 and going to certain races and Mickey Thompson's, all that type of thing, to race off-road and to have a four-wheel off-road race vehicle. So I'm pretty excited, extremely excited. Just can't wait to see the chassis, can't wait to get it home. Got a buddy who's going to help me put it together and build it because I don't know all the ins and outs of doing that. So excited to learn that whole process, learn about all the different systems more independently of how a car comes together, from the electrical system, powertrain, etc. So I'm going to be doing a step-by-step vlog on how the race car comes together, how much it costs to build it, any roadblocks, any issues we encounter during the way. So if you've ever kind of had the itch to go racing or thought about it, how much work goes into it, how much time, effort, and money, a lot to it, you know. So the next video is going to have a detailed list of all the parts that I'm using, parts that I have been collecting for this build. Got pretty much everything ready to go. I'd say 90%, other than some of the fab items that we're going to need, a couple smaller items. So one thing that's going to be missing from the chassis that normally would be included in the build was the radiator. It was damaged, so they had to get a new radiator, and it might not show up today, so might have to get that shipped out so I can get going on building the car. All right, well, here she is. Got her all loaded up. Time to get back to Arizona and get to work. We got a couple more brackets we're going to have to put on, a couple little things, and excited to get this thing running so we can get her up and going, put together, assembled, wrapped, painted right before Camp RZR. So let's get on the highway, let's make it happen. Got the chassis back in Arizona and time to get to work. This is my buddy Brent Mann. His company's American Engineering. He's been fabricating off-road, dealing with off-road racing for a huge part of his life, and he's going to be helping me essentially doing most all the work in this thing, from the rolling chassis, which you guys saw, Fabworks, to a rolling car. So we've got a hefty goal of trying to get this thing ready by Camp RZR. First off, just want to talk to Brent a little bit and give you guys a little insight into his background and where he comes from. So, Brent, how did you fall in love with this off-road world, and how's that leading to today?
Basically, as a young kid, growing up in Southern California, got hurt on a dirt bike, had to find something else to do, and was fortunate enough to, when I was like 12 years old, run into Tony Vanilla that owns Off-Road Management Group. Back then he ran a team called Church Engineering, and I started out sweeping the floors and learning the ropes for them for years. And then after that, moved to Arizona, and then I was fortunate enough to go help Kurt LeDuc in the Baja 1000. I fixed his Jeep in the middle of the Potomac Wash, and since then I worked for him for about 12 years. Won a lot of races and championships with the LeDucs and all the boys. I rode in the Class 8 with Todd LeDuc for years, and we won a lot of races and championships, and then moved on from that to Red Bull Motorsports at Barlow Motorsports, and I was crew chief for Ricky Johnson and Rob McCackern in the Pro 2 program, and won a lot of races, a lot of stuff, and then have been doing my own shop for a little bit, working with a lot of different trophy truck and Class 1 people, and fabbing and preparing race vehicles.
Very cool. We were both mutual friends through Todd, who we mentioned. That's how we initially met each other, and now we only live 15 minutes apart, years later. So called up Brent, said, hey, I've got a chassis, want to get this thing rolling, and he's the first person I thought of. So excited to get it going. Started off with the chassis being built by Fabworks. This is Thad Mayhew's Fabworks' latest chassis he's built for the RZR platform. Compared to some of the chassis he's done previously, it's just got a little bit lower center of gravity. He's claiming about 5 inches. He ended up mounting the front hood a little bit lower as well because the driver sits lower, a little bit easier to see over, and just everything with a little bit lower center of gravity. So, Brent, you got the chassis. I had an idea of what it was going to be, but as it turns out, we had a little bit more fabrication than we initially thought was going to be need to get it going. First starting off, you can see that Brent's got the radiator mounted, which initially the car was supposed to be delivered with the radiator mounted, but Fabricator had an issue with it. They damaged when they sent us a nice newer upgraded version. Thank you very much, Dad. But Brent had to get some tabs going for that just to get that going. So. All right, so here's the back of the car. Here is the radiator all mounted in. As you can see, Brent had to kind of start off from nothing and get it all set up. Of course, Brent, you want this thing up towards getting some airflow and then out of the way of damage. Any other thoughts or ideas on mounting issues, or was it easy to go in?
Well, it was easy there's a lot of room, but a lot of people, they mount radiators, don't put a lot of things in effect of, the angle of your radiator for one. You can only go so many degrees, and then your radiators will start to create air bubbles, but you wanted it so. Also, another thing people don't think about is you're going to have a rear view mirror in here. You're going to want to be able to see out the back, so you got to make a clear view of sight, keep your angle. Also, I like things to be visually, it's the same angle as the chassis, so when your eye looks at it, it looks the same. You're not seeing different angles and you're like, that looks weird, but and also you got to mount it enough for a nice screen. It's a really nice unit. This is a radiator and also an intercooler combined for the turbo system on this. I think it's one of their first new versions of this. It's a really nice radiator. I'm very impressed with the CBR radiator.
All right, so Brent, picked up the chassis with the fuel safe fuel cell. And the way it ended up being mounted, we're pretty tight in terms of it being very close to the seat. I'm 6'3", the vehicle was set up for a taller driver and co-rider like myself. Pretty happy with how all this came together. Anything else you'd add about this section of the car?
No, it's actually really, I like it because it's down low, keeping the low center of gravity in center of the vehicle too. So you're not putting extra weight out the back or towards the front more, so I think it's going to be balanced real well. It is tight, but I like it because it's in there out of the way. It's very clean, so it's good. As you can see with the seats, it is a RZR, so it's not a trophy truck where you have more room, but once you get in here, it's a lot of room. Very comfortable, great vision, great view of everything. We put a dead pedal in here for the brake and the rest. And the one cool thing about this car, unlike a lot of the current racers, is that this car has a racing master cylinder and not the stock RZR. So it will be more efficient in the braking. We're outlining, we had to do some aluminum work for notching for the dry shaft clearance, and we're starting to lay out our dash. That's the next thing this week, is to lay out all this, and then we'll start running our wiring loom and getting that in. We're going to mount the Parker pumper. We're going to have mounts for the lead nav, and of course all the best in the desert tracking and all that. So
yeah, so I had a couple ideas. I wanted to leave it up to free reign. You know much better than me. You've been in a lot more race cars than myself. The only things I was looking for, basically take what I had for the vehicle ready to go, such as we're using a race pack dash, which is going to replace the stock cluster. You wanted to do a nicer start-stop as well as a key on the backside. And then for GPS, we're going to use an iPad set up on a RAM mount for the lead nav app, which I was able to use in the Vegas Reno race and really liked it and thought that that was the future and something that people in the community speak very highly of. So any other thoughts on the layout of the dash? Of course, we got a radio we've got to get in there, and then our switches. Any other ideas or preferences that you've noticed?
The one thing that I like, because I've been a co-rider and driven a lot of my life, is in the center we're going to mount the communication box, so the driver and co-rider can adjust their volumes or whatnot. The radio I like to put on the co-driver side. I don't like the driver being able to access the radio. That his job is to drive, and the co-rider needs to handle that. So that's one thing we're going to do. Put a few switches over here for the driver, but mostly all the lights and all that switches will be over here on the passenger side. So that's his job. I like the driver just be able to drive. Maybe in the future we'll put a smaller GPS here for the driver, but it's going to be a very clean and thought out, laid out dash. So moving to the front of the car, you can see the lights Brent has installed. We've got two of the XL rigid driving lights, and then we've got the RZR 1000 lighting kit, which fits all stock RZRs as well. What do you think? Do you think I'm going to have enough light, or do you think it's going to result in a bigger power draw? I think these are going to be great. The one thing is I like lights more down low. A lot of people think light bars up top or the way that it looks. These are good for long range and dust, but I like more lights down low. And as you notice, a lot of the trophy trucks are going to that way where they have all their lights behind the grill that they take out. You get more efficiency with your lights down here. But yes, if we add a bigger light bar, we're going to have a light bar in the back that combines all of our safety, amber, blue, brake light, tail light, and a work light. The more we're going to start putting on here, we're going to have to start thinking about, an alternator kit on the, an external one. We're going to be drawing more amps, but I think for right now, we'll go with this setup and maybe a couple pods right here, but and then we'll see about, if we're going to go down to Baja, in the fog, putting some a light bar up here with some amber lights would be good. So. All right, so moving to the back of the chassis, Brent, you can see you've already got the motor and transmission mocked up and got all the big components installed. What else are you thinking about in the rear? Obviously, we've got a full-size spare, and we need to make room for an extra rear axle. So what are you thinking about? Looks like you're already working on a tab or a mounting bracket. Yeah, right now I got some tabs mocked up and tacked up for the jack. You have an FOA jack. And so what I'm doing is mounting that here. In the front here, I want to mount a complete spare axle. And I've actually went to the laser jetter to cut out some mounts for it. So in this area right here, we'll have a complete rear axle ready to go. And the jack here I'm mounting up. So what my thinking from racing is the driver stays in. My experience is I get out, I do it. So that way the co-rider can get the jack, get the tire. He already has the impact gun and do all that. So we're laying that out, and under the spare tire, I'm thinking of creating some deals in here with aluminum that we can hold spare parts bags and tool bags back here, so they're not in the driver compartment. I'll probably have a little holder in here for some spare oil, and that's kind of where we're going at right now. We got the motor and trans mocked up in here, and we're starting to think about our water lines and our oil lines up into the radiator, and our exhaust. Our exhaust is going to come out here. Probably going to have a MagnaFlow muffler out here with a tip, and should sound real nice and give us the performance that we need. All right, so that's part one. Tune in to part two, where we're going to be getting closer to getting this thing finished. Brent's going to break down more of the electrical system, the cooling system, and just keep you updated on all of our progress, our struggles, our ups and downs. Brent, thanks for your help. Yeah. And if you guys like this, tune in for part two.
Another Chupacabra sighting.
I've never run across anything like this.
Do you believe in the Chupacabra?